Happy to be here. Happy to be chatting with you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for saying yes, especially that, because I know you're
Mhm.
really busy. You've got so much stuff to do. I'm just so happy you've been able to join us today. And when we put up the topic for assertive communication, so many people actually responded that
Wow.
this is something they really want to kind of like get to hear about and to learn more about, because I think it's so important, especially when we're trying to um, get our raise, or even just fight our corner at work, or even in relationships. Communication is so key. And I'm so excited to be doing this today. One of the things I'm going to try and do is just make sure that you are tagged on this live and just invite more people before we start.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would never have said no to you, Harriet, for this. Whatever you ask me, I always say yes. Happy to support everything you do because I know it comes from the heart and it always comes from a good place.
Thank you so much. That's so good to hear. With Jenny, come on, where's
Yeah, there's
Jenny?
Jenny Lecky Garrett, or my page is at Coach Jenny Garrett.
And then there we go. I've been able to tag you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so people will be able to see. Yeah. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we've started at 1 o'clock. That just shows you how Jenny is so like on point. Um, which we love. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for taking time out. Thank you, Jenny, for saying yes and being here today to talk to us about this very important topic. And before we start, I just want to ask you guys to please share this video, share it far and wide, share it to as many people as you can, and ask questions, because we're talking about communication. Jenny is here only for half an hour. We need to ask as many questions as we can. We need to know what she knows. And we'll hear what she has done as well, just to see that she is the right person to talk about communication. Communication is a huge area in our lives, especially as professional women, because it's how we come across, it's how we're seen, and it's how we're received, right? So before we start, I just want to make sure that you guys have been sharing this. Please share it. Let other people know about it, because this is just the moment that, I want to have as many women and men as possible listening to this, and also just checking in. I hope everyone is okay. Everyone is looking after themselves. I hope all of you are safe and healthy and well, not just physically, but also mentally. Don't forget to look after your mental health as much as you're looking after your physical health. It's so important. So we will start, and I will ask Jenny to tell us a bit about herself before we begin with the questions.
Lovely, lovely. So where shall I start? Well, I had marketing roles, quite senior marketing roles in corporate organizations. If I'm talking about my career, really enjoyed it, loved marketing, thought that was the work I was meant to do. And then one day, a colleague who's now a really good friend just came into my office and she said, "Where next? Where are you going with your career?" And I thought, I'm here, I'm doing it, I'm doing my career. And she said, no, you can get a bigger team or a bigger budget somewhere else. And she said, or you could start training people in marketing, because I worked for an organization that provided leadership development. At the time, I was not a confident public speaker, although that's something I do all the time now. So I couldn't imagine myself training people. And I didn't want to leave where I was, because actually, in terms of my lifestyle, my work-life balance, it really worked for me. So then she said to me, what about coaching? You motivate people. You're a really good listener. Perhaps you could coach people. And I thought, oh, I don't mind going on a coaching program, getting a new skill, developing myself. Why not? Probably wouldn't become a coach, but that's all fine. So I attended this program and I found it personally and professionally really transformational, Harriet. I don't know if you've been on any programs like that where just kind of blows your mind. You think, who am I? Why am I here? Why do I do the things I do? Just made me unpack everything about myself. And I just found the power of coaching conversations, that they can transform people, that they can help them realize their potential. And of course, I was still working at the same organization. They were kind enough to let me coach on some programs a little bit, but it was never going to be my full-time job because I was employed as a marketer. So I felt very stuck. I don't know if you've ever felt like that, or maybe some other people listening have felt like that, where you just boxed in. You know, you have grown, you have developed, you're ready to do something different, but your workplace is saying, no, this is who you are, you stay there. And I didn't know what to do. So I got some coaching myself, and with the help of my coach, we created a plan that I'd go down to 4 days a week in my job. And on the 5th day, I would work on getting some coaching clients, seeing if this was really the thing that I wanted to do, seeing if I'd get some money to do the thing that I wanted to do. And I set myself a target. If I earn this much, I could take the leap into coaching. So we set that target. Within a year, I had won this contract for 6 months, which meant that I could leave my day job. And that was 13 years ago now. It's grown from one-to-one coaching to providing leadership development to me writing a book about 7 years ago, which is called Rocking Your Role, which is a guide to success for female breadwinners. And then doing lots of work specifically with women in organizations, helping them to juggle work and life, navigate their career. And also now more broadly, so not just working around gender, but also working with BAME's colleagues, Black, Asian, minority ethnic colleagues, helping them to navigate the workplace too. So that's the main work I do. But as you know, I also run retreats as well. And I have a community of women that I support. So that's me. And I've been married 20 years last week. Please tell me I don't look old enough. And I have an 18-year-old daughter. So that's my life.
That's amazing. I mean, I have known Jenny for quite some time, and our paths have crossed so many times. And I know, like, when it comes to people who call themselves coaches, I can actually attest to Jenny being a very genuine coach because of her journey and because of like her qualifications. And she's actually toned down a bit, like what she does, because she also goes on to BBC and other mainstream media, and she does talk, and if you want to talk a bit about that, because that's very important when it comes to communication.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of communication, I've really had to learn to be a good communicator. And in terms of my communication journey, it's quite an important one because I was a very nervous public speaker. If I had to speak years ago, my knees would knock, my voice would go, my palms would be sweaty. And I've really had to, particularly when I wrote my book, really develop those skills to be able to provide talks. And as soon as I wrote my book, the week after, I was invited onto BBC Radio 4's Woman's Hour to be interviewed. And they really grill you. They don't just let you off nicely. They really want to get to the bottom of what you're talking about and challenge you. And it hasn't really stopped. So I'm a regular on Sky News and BBC Radio London. And you have to talk succinctly, you have to speak clearly, you have to really sometimes fight to get your message across. I've had to really develop my communication skills, as well as when I provide training, you have to really communicate effectively. So at multiple levels, whether that's in a newsroom to talking to my daughter, I've had to really develop my communication skills. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So she's mentioned about her book. I'm going to put a link on this live with her book and a retreat that she's doing next month, which is going to be so amazing. I'm going to join it. I keep saying I need to go for her retreats, and I've never had the opportunity. Now that I am at home and she's running a virtual one, I'm so definitely going to go for that one. So I just want us to get started. If you have any questions with regards to communication, please send your questions now, because we're only going to have, I'm only going to have her for 30 minutes. I'm not going to go any over that time. I'm very conscious of time. So let's talk a bit about different forms of communication. I know there's passive aggressive, there's aggressive, there's passive, there's assertive communication. Can we just talk a bit about those different types of communication so that people can actually know or figure out where they are at when they're communicating?
Yeah, passive communication is when you feel like you lose. You have a conversation and you back down. You're the one who always steps back and says it's okay, doesn't matter. Yeah, you do the thing that you want to do. And so what we're doing is we're always the person who loses out in the conversation, or in the communication. So when we're passive, we don't stand up for ourselves. We don't really share what we're thinking. We're not honest about that quite often. We're being a bit subservient to the other people. And it's really, I've got a prime example actually. So I got a contract recently, and we've changed some of the things within the contract. And the person came back to me and said, does that mean the price is reduced? And I'd already given a really good price, so I didn't want to reduce the price. And I had to sit with it, because even though I'm talking about communication, I still find it challenging. I do it, but I do find it challenging to have assertive communication. So I had to sit with it and say, I could say, okay, yeah, we'll reduce the price. That would have been passive communication. I could have gone back more aggressively and gone, what do you mean? You're already getting a good price. How dare you even ask me about reducing the price? In fact, maybe I should increase it. And that would have been the more aggressive communication. I could have been passive aggressive, where I say, yeah, it's okay. But then I could have started just taking bits out of the program, or not answering their calls, and not being as good as I should be. But I assertively communicated myself. So I said, actually, you're already getting a really great deal from us. We didn't anticipate how much you were going to want from us, but we really want to work with you in that way. And with that in mind, we want to keep the price exactly as it is. And we'll continue to deliver the good quality that we're delivering. And she came back to me and just said, yeah, absolutely okay. And if I'd gone passive, I would have been thinking, I don't really feel as committed to this work anymore. If I'd gone passive aggressive, I would have damaged my business, because I'd be saying, oh yeah, I'm pretending that it's okay, but actually I'm not delivering in the way that I should be. And if I'd gone aggressive, I would have ruined that relationship. So when you're assertive, you're standing up for yourself, but you're both winning. And that's the key. Yeah. It's not about I'm stomping on you. It's not about them not about you stomping on them. It's about actually we're equal here, and we both can find a way to win. And you feel better about yourself when you have assertive communication. But it does take courage. I'm not going to say this is easy. I had to kind of sit on the message. It took me 24 hours to respond, think carefully about the way I was going to say it, and how, and what it meant for me. And I think you've got to give yourself time to communicate. The off the cuff communication, you might slip into those habits of saying, yeah, okay, but not being happy about it. Or, you know what, I'm going to have an argument with you. That's not going to work. And so it's often good to say, you know what, I'm going to take this away and think about it. Even if you're face to face, you can say, can I come back to you? I'm going to come back to you on that. I just need some time to think. And that's fine to be able to do. You don't always have to speak in the moment, because that's sometimes when we make mistakes.
Exactly. And I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm thinking how, when I had started my business, how passive aggressive I was. Because you don't want to say no to the person with regards to reducing the prices. So you want to reduce it, and then you cheekily, sneakily remove some of the things so that you don't, to match what price that you're going to be charging. And I'm sure so many people have done that in the process where they're starting their business, when they're still finding their footing. Because when you're starting out, you're quite scared to say no, because you don't know where the next client will come from, and you don't know where money will come from again. So you're thinking, okay, I'm just going to take it, but I'm going to do this. But then I'm just realizing how important it is to come across like saying what you mean and meaning what you say, because it actually does become a business, isn't it? And communication is not contrary to popular opinion, it's not just about how we speak, it's also about what we're thinking. Because it's the internal process as well. Like listening to you, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's the internal process. So the internal process determines what I'm going to be saying and what I'm going to be putting up. So it's a lot deeper than we actually think. We'll probably have to have another session to kind of like look into this deeper, because we want to talk about assertive communication. So why is it challenging for women to communicate what they actually want?
It's a really interesting thing. You know, from a very early age, women are socialized to communicate in a certain way. We're socialized to put our needs behind and maximize other people's needs, to be selfless in the way that we behave and communicate. There's a really good book by a woman called Deborah Tannen, and it's called Talking 9 to 5. And she shares a really good example of this. So she had some university students in the first year of university, and she asked them what grade they thought they'd get at the end of their degree. So she asked them to put it in an envelope and not tell anyone. And then she asked them to say it out loud. What they wrote in the envelope, they were saying things like, yeah, I'll get a first, or I'll get a 2-1, or, you know, I'll get high grades. When they were asked to say it out loud, they were saying, yeah, I think I might get a 2-2 if I'm lucky, or a third. And when she asked them, what's the difference? Why wouldn't you be honest? They said they wanted to be sensitive to the needs of other people. So by saying I'm going to get a first, I might make someone else who's only going to get a third feel bad about themselves. And this is what we do quite often. Why it's so hard for us to communicate is because we don't want to hurt other people's feelings. We don't want to make other people feel bad. Now, this is a great skill. Empathy, emotional intelligence. These are great skills that women have. So I'm not saying we need to take these skills away, but sometimes we overplay these skills. And when we overplay any strength, it becomes a weakness for us. Because if I keep downplaying myself, not speaking up for myself, people don't read between the lines. They don't say, oh, you know what, she's minimizing herself, but she's really brilliant. Or she's not speaking up, but she has something powerful to say. They just decide that's who you are, and that's who you become to them. So it's really dangerous for us not to communicate and not to assert our opinion. People don't know what's going on in our head, why we're doing it, what our motivations are. They just take us at face value. And that means that we miss out. And it's really dangerous because one of the big places is meetings. You know, when you have meetings, most workplaces have meetings, not speaking up, not having a voice, not communicating. Yeah, people just think, well, what are they there for? They're probably not thinking anything. They don't have anything to contribute. And that's really detrimental for us in our careers or in our businesses. So, yeah, it's very important for us to be speaking up. And just in these COVID times, look at the women who are the strong women. You know, Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand, Angela Merkel from Germany. These women spoke up and are now in positions of power. Those countries are doing better because of that. We have a responsibility to share what it is we have to say, because what we have to say is powerful. It can make a huge difference in our countries, in our communities. So don't hide what you have to say. Put it out there.
I find that especially when it comes to negotiating salaries, or when women are asking for a raise, that sometimes they don't know how to put things across. And like what I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about our character and our behaviors and everything, I'm thinking you're better off actually saying this is what you want, and you state clearly why you think you deserve that. Because if you actually don't do that, what happens over time is you don't enjoy your job, and you don't even do a great job at it. So you're still communicating in a passive way, but very aggressive.
You're so right. You're just so right here, because what happens is you seethe inside. Inside, you're getting more and more angry. Why aren't they noticing me? I'm working hard. I'm keeping my head down. I've been here for years. And someone else is surpassing me. What's going on? But you might not directly be confronting your line manager, whoever it is, about it. I think the challenge is, especially for women of color, that sometimes when we are assertive, we are labeled the angry Black woman or whatever. We do have to think carefully about how we communicate. If it is particularly around a pay rise, I would say gather your evidence. How much do other people get paid? How much do people in other sectors doing your same job get paid? What kind of feedback have you had, which shows that you're already working at the next level? Demonstrate what value, impact you bring to the organization. So it's not just enough to say, you know, I've been here, I deserve it. It's like, where's the impact? Can I demonstrate that? Where's the evidence that I should be getting paid more? And be prepared to negotiate in that. Maybe they can't afford to pay you more right now, but what can they give you? Can they put you on a training course? Can they give you time off, a sabbatical? You know, what can be prepared to negotiate and find out what they can give you, even if they can't give you what you want right now, or negotiate a time scale. Can we review this again in 3 months? Can we review this in 6 months? So that you're holding them to account. So I think these are things that are important. You don't always get what you want initially, but even if you have that conversation and you realize, you know what, they don't value me, and I'm not going to get a pay rise, that's information that you needed to know, because that tells you either I stay here and I put up with it, or I start looking elsewhere.
Exactly.
And so it's still worth having the conversation.
Yeah. So I guess the next question is going to be kind of a personal question. I'd love to know how you've been able to navigate some spaces, being able to be assertive with obviously being a woman of color. How have you been able to do that without being termed as aggressive and all the other words, colorful words that they love to use?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I have a perfect answer for that. But what I would say is I always share my intention before I share my feedback or my thoughts. So I let people know, my intention for sharing this is I want us to be better, or I want us to be able to work together, or whatever. And I always look to the person's positive intention. So even if I'm not necessarily giving some good feedback, so I don't know, Harriet, say you said something that really upset me, I might try to search for why would Harriet do that? Oh, maybe Harriet said that because she wants me to be better at what I'm doing. Or maybe Harriet said that because actually the whatever I was doing wasn't going well. So I search for the positive intention and I speak to that first. It might be, Harriet, I really know that you want me to be better. So I say that first. And then I'll say, my experience of the way you said it to me, though, maybe hurt me. What was your intention? What was the reality of the situation? Was that your intention? So I would ask you. So I would speak first to the fact that I believe you have a positive intention, but I would say how the behavior made me think or feel. And then I would ask, what's the truth of the matter? But I speak to that positive intention first. And if I'm giving feedback, I also share my positive intention for the conversation, because sometimes people don't have a positive intention. So just say, if I'm about to have a conversation with my husband and he hasn't done something that I want him to do, if I'm immediately going, I just want to tell him off. I just want him to know what he's done wrong. Yeah, there's no positive intention out of that. If I really want for him to not do it again, or for us to work something through, I need to think about what my positive intention for the conversation is. If you can't think of a good way out, you're going to have this conversation and there's no positive that could come out of it, maybe you shouldn't have that communication in the first place, because it should be something that ends up takes you both to a good place. Even if it doesn't do so immediately, it should take you to a good place eventually. And that should be your intention from it.
I think I feel like you've said so many important bits with regards to communication. And what I hear you saying is you're not just talking about how navigating those tough conversations is as a Black woman, you're talking about navigating the hard conversations in general, which I really appreciate, because sometimes we feel like, and it has happened to us once or twice, when something is said and the first thing you think is, oh, are they saying that because I'm this? Are they saying that because I'm that? So I think what you've said about thinking about the positive intention of approaching that conversation really transcends more than talking about communication. It's all about your mindset. So it's about shifting your whole mindset to be able to have effective communications.
Absolutely.
Because the communication, like hearing you speak, communication is not just one-sided. It's everything from your mind to how you process things to how you speak. So when we think about communication, we really need to think about our mind, we need to think about what we're thinking before we actually start processing it and being able to communicate. And it goes back to what you actually said at the beginning, that you have to think about, you have to process what is being said before you respond.
Yes.
So it's not just about something comes up and you want to respond straight away, because if you want to respond straight away, that's where now we are rushed, we say things we don't mean. So it's about taking your time and not having a comeback, because we love to clap back, right?
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's
Yeah.
more about, okay, why did they say this? And then you process the information, you process your point of view and their point of view, and then come back to them and approach it that way. And I've never really thought of it the way you've put it, like having the positive intention first. I must admit, I am very witty. So you can say something and I just have something I come back with. And like, and this comes from growing up in a household with 6 children, right? And you're the 5th. So you have to be extra witty to be heard, you know, and you have to be really quick in how you speak. So it's about retraining yourself in a way that you can communicate with others effectively. So it's not a competition here. Like, my life, it's always been like competition, because that's how you're brought up. You know, you're in a household where everyone has an opinion, right? So you come to the world and you have to listen to others and process that and have a conversation. So I really love the aspects that you brought up, because I've never really thought about communication like that. I don't know what you think about that. And if there's anything you can add on to that, because it's very, it's not just what we study, but it's also your experience that you're bringing in.
Yeah, and I think that's quite important. So just a number of things about what you said. If you are a woman who can use humor, that's a great skill. So you know, I think that's fantastic. So if you use humor and you can use it appropriately and not offend people, then use humor, because I think it diffuses a lot of situations. But I also like the fact that you talked about where your approach to communication comes from. And we all have to think about that. You know, I think about culturally, you know, my Caribbean heritage, we're quite direct and we'll put someone down, but then we'll laugh about it in a couple of minutes. But when I go to workplace, I can't have that same communication. So you also have to think, what's your natural approach due to what's come from your family or how you brought up? And you have to think about, well, what's appropriate for these different conversations? And there are lots of psychometric tools, which I'm sure you've come across, things like personality questionnaires is another name for them, things like Myers-Briggs type indicator and insights. And they're really good for just thinking, actually, how do I communicate? What is my preference? And also the person who annoys you the most usually has an opposite preference to you. So you start to think, it's not that they want to annoy me. They're not going out of their way to be difficult. They have an opposite preference. And now then you can start to think about how you flex and adapt your approach, or how you share with them. You know what, we approach things in the opposite way. Well, how can we meet in the middle? So actually coming at it from that direction can also be useful. But actually that thought process, you understanding where your preference for communication comes from and your approach comes from, is a really good starting point for everyone. How do I communicate? Why do I communicate like that? How does that fit clients or the customers or my colleagues that I'm meeting who probably have a different way, you know, they've had a different experience, and that can explain some of the clashes and help you flex and adapt.
Yeah. It's so important. It feels like we're having a Facebook Live, but I'm having therapy, right? Okay. I'm having therapy right now.
This is the coach.
And I'm not.
This is it's
It goes to show Jenny really is a coach. So as much as we're having a conversation, she's also kind of like pulling out those key points in your life, like in communication. It gets you to think about, okay, how do I communicate? Where do I go wrong? So it's not just about her talking about stuff. If you kind of like play this back, you'll be able to kind of like hear what she's really saying, because I'm just like, this is gold. So I'm quite conscious about time. We're close to 30 minutes. The last question I'm going to ask you. The last question I'm going to ask you, if no one else has any question, because all I'm seeing is comments. I hope you can see them because I've been putting them on the screen. It's really positive feedback as well. I think us women don't really think about the intention of what we want to say. That's very clear from what I'm saying. One tip to help the viewers become effective communicators.
Yeah, I've got a really good tip in that sometimes as women, our words get appropriated by other people. So you make a comment, someone else says it, usually male or whoever, and then, oh, it's a brilliant comment when they said it and not when we said it. So the tool is called PEP. You make your point, you explain it 3 times, and you make your point again. And then you're much more succinct. So, oh, Harriet, I'd love you to do more Facebook Lives. The reason, because you look beautiful on screen, you're a great interviewer, and I think more people would know about your amazing work if you did. I'd like you to do more Facebook Lives, Harriet. Yeah. And so you say it at the beginning, you say the point again at the end, so you've reinforced it, but you also give 3 points, and 3 is very memorable and it's also succinct. And so no one's going to say, well, Shamake Hall said you should do more Facebook Lives, because they'll say, because I said the point and I've made it really clear, and I've said it at the beginning and the end, and I've given you 3 reasons. So I would encourage people, if you want to make a point in a meeting, you want to make sure that you make your point and it lands and no one else steals it, use PEP. Point, explain 3 times, point again.
That's very interesting. So quick one, do men and women communicate differently? Because what I'm hearing you say, I mean, in the meetings that I've been to, oh my goodness, I've been aggressive. I'm not going to lie. Because I've always been in spaces where there's a lot more men than women, or I find that I'm the only woman and I tend to be very aggressive. I find like when I'm aggressive, they listen. And it's not really good because I'm not an aggressive person. It's just in that room.
That's why you have to get in.
Exactly. So I'm thinking, why do women have to present it like that, and men just have to say it once and it's accepted?
I think what the research finds is that women, sometimes we talk too long. The truth is, so we're making our point and people lose us because we've got so much to say that we can say too much. And so by the time we've got to the middle sometimes, then people think, what was the point? And then they just go off. And men often make the points more succinctly and clearly. That we want to share everything that we know. The truth is, when you've made your point in that way, they can ask you for more information. It's not that you never have a chance to say more, but if you make it more succinctly, people know. The other thing is, which is a bit annoying, is our voices. Why I say it's annoying is that we have our voices and our voices are what they are. But the research shows that from an early age, men tune out to women's voices, and it's about our high pitch, and it sounds a lot like music. And so if you lower your voice a bit and deepen it a little bit, I don't mean, hi, I'm Jenny. I don't mean you don't have to do that, but just lower it a little bit, excuse me, and slow your pace down. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. If you lower it a little bit and slow your pace down, you're more listened to. So sadly, we have to communicate, if we are in a male-dominated environment, a little bit like the men are communicating, a little bit more succinctly. And also, if we can lower your voice just comfortably, I don't mean really lower it, but just in a comfortable way, slow your voice down, you're more likely to be listened to. But we want to change the workplaces. So we don't want to just change ourselves. We want men to just notice that they're behaving like that, or find ways to call them out on it so that we don't have to change ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. That's really good. It's, I'm gonna watch this again. I know I've been asking the questions, but the feedback is so good, and the topics that you've touched on is so amazing. I'm definitely gonna have Jenny back because I think communication is key. Communication is huge. And probably if she would be willing to say yes, probably do something on communication, effective communication. I don't know.
Okay.
It depends.
I will never say no to you, Harriet. You'll always get yeses, so you're fine.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank everyone for coming in and viewing this, and please share it to everyone, because I know with women this is so important for us. We need to be able to know how to communicate effectively, not just to communicate effectively. And also it's going to help us with relationships with other people, with our kids, with our parents, and everyone else. And I just want to thank you, Jenny, so much once again.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me
and being here with us. Her information is going to be below. We're also going to be putting more information with regards to what she is doing. She's got an amazing book out. It's not just recently out. I've read it, and it's such a good book. It's Rocking Your Role, and we'll put the link there as well, so you can get the book. And she's a coach, like I've said. So if you want to get really great in coaching, and if you want to be able to take your career to a different level, be able to be called upon and in media, right? I would like that. And get to share your thoughts and everything else. You need to be able to communicate effectively so that your time there is not wasted. So she does that as well. You can reach her, and she does coaching as well. And she has a retreat coming up, which I am so going for. Her retreats are so amazing. It's just a shame that I'm not going to be in a hotel, but next time we'll be in a hotel. She's doing the retreat in June. The information is also on the link, and I'm going to share the information tomorrow again. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Gave us your feedback so we know what you would like to hear about communication, so that we can work something out and have more of these meaningful conversations again. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much, Jenny. I don't know if you want to say anything else before we pop out.
No, just thank you, Harriet. It was a great conversation. You obviously did a great job because it went so quickly. And hello to everybody who was here, and I hope you got something useful from it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Take care. Have a lovely week, and be blessed. Bye. Thank you so much, Jenny.
No problem. That was great. Great chat. Thank you very much.